Hey, how's it
Hi,
going?
Sean. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Doing very well, thanks. How are things going? You're down in Nashville, right?
Yeah, things are going good. We're just kind of getting through day by day, basically hanging out. My wife and I, we got our 3-year-old. She just turned 3 on Monday, so she's been a handful, which has been great.
Happy
So
birthday.
yeah, thank you. So she's been fun. It's kind of
Good.
yeah, it's Groundhog Day, but it's good. Things are good.
Yeah, right? No kidding. Well, first things first, you guys have a new album coming out August 28th, and I'm going to let you say the title of the album because I don't want to screw it up.
It's Si vis pacem parabellum, and I've heard some people say Si vis pacem, but I believe the correct pronunciation is Si vis pacem parabellum.
Okay, and
So it's not all that frightening.
Yeah, no, I just I looked at it and I'm pretty sure I said Packham the first time I said it on the radio here. So, but either way, it means if you want peace, prepare for war. Is that right?
Yes. Just basically, we had finished the album, and I'm looking at the dates. We got the masters back around about the 19th of February, so it's been done for a while. And just what I could think about, a few weeks after that, we had the shutdown, and I still didn't have a name for it, so it was kind of a big deal. So I was just coming up with ideas. I had like a few ideas that I wanted to try out. There were maybe 4 or 5 on the short list, and I didn't really know which ones. They didn't really speak to me as much as when I came up with this one, and I was just kind of going through the internet and going, well, hey, what about something Latin just to be different, and but maybe just for us to be different for us, So I basically found this. I love the parabellum part, and then I love the whole thing made kind of sense with today's climate. And so I just settled on that for the name because it just felt right, and it's just basically it's my kind of way of putting a timestamp on the year for me and for this album and for this band, and I felt it made the most sense, and I just kind of I really like that it's got parabellum in it. I think that's cool, So
Yeah, it's definitely a beautiful title, and with everything that's going on in the world right now, 2020 as a whole, it's the translation is really it really hits deep. So did you, like you said, you tossed around a few ideas for a different title, but had quarantine started when you settled on this title, or was this everything really going crazy?
I think it had started. I think it was round about right in the beginning of it, maybe a week or two into it, and that was when we were starting to get pressure to what do we call this thing? And we didn't, I didn't know. So I think it was definitely after we weren't allowed to leave the house anymore. And I mean, look, I'm not somebody who leaves the house much anyway, so I'm okay with some of the restrictions and things, but it just felt kind of it felt now that I couldn't go out, I was kind of mad about it because
right.
I mean it's fine if I'm choosing not to go out, but if I get told not to do something, then I kind of get a little bit agitated by it. But I understand what it's all for. I'm kind of disappointed that we've now entered a phase like here where I'm at in Tennessee. They've just reinstated now a mandatory face mask in public law or mandate. I don't know if it's a law per se. And I get anxious when I wear these things. So again, I don't really leave the house much. It doesn't affect me that much. And I get what the purpose behind it is. But you got 100-degree heat, and it's like 80% humidity, and you've got this thing on your face that's stopping any kind of air going in and out of your mouth unrestricted. So yeah, I just don't leave the house then, and then I don't have to do the mask thing. But it's all kind of just been culminating that this whole year has been so strange. And there was all the news before that, like the murder hornets before the shutdown, and the bushfires, and then there's been tornadoes. Not tornadoes. There's been earthquakes everywhere. There's been almost if you can think of something that's been bad, it's happened this year so far. So it kind of feels almost like it's like the planet is trying to shrug us off in a way. You know what I mean? It's like we've had enough.
Yeah.
And because we're like an ant colony that's just there's just so many of us. I think
the line I read today was killer seaweed.
Oh, cool! No, that's perfect. So,
So
I'll
your
put it
reaction
in.
to that was literally exactly my reaction as I was going through, like, what do we talk about on the air today? And I was like, oh, killer sweetweed. Awesome.
So, does that mean that sushi's now off the table as well? I guess because, God, I mean, why not take all the good things away?
I was gonna say, are you a big sushi fan?
I do. My wife doesn't much care for fish, so we don't have it around the house much. But when we do go out, which when we used to, we were allowed to go out all the time. I could get away with, like, we could go to maybe a Thai place that also serves sushi, or a Chinese place that also serves sushi, because then I could get some sashimi or something, and she can get a teriyaki bowl of some sort. So it's compromise, but it's not like we have a steady stream of raw fish coming in this house. So,
Right.
but yeah, I hadn't heard about the seaweed one. So that's just, I mean, honestly, at this point, it sounds like some guy's writing a novel and it's just coming true. It's like some horror writer who's just decided. And didn't Stephen King write the story anyway about the lab and then the virus escaping? And he wrote that 20 years ago, and now it's coming. So maybe he's some kind of a fortune teller of sorts. But yeah, I don't know. I think I was so excited for this year because last year it was kind of slow, and we'd been home and I'd been writing music for 10 months, and I was just really ready to get the album out. We were supposed to be on tour, sorry, this summer with Three Doors Down. And we love those guys. We know them really well. And it was going to be this great sort of just weekend warrior stuff, and we'd be home during the week, and it was really going to be good for all of our sanity and just basically the mental health of it. Because touring when you're a kid is easy, but I think when you get older and you have a family, you kind of really feel torn about being away for such extended periods of time. So we try not to have that happen. But I was looking forward to that, and I think that was the one thing too is the whole lockdown thing kind of threw me off, because I knew there was this direction, and there was this plan, there was this whole sort of snowball that was going to start rolling down the mountain, and then suddenly somebody just blew it up, and now we got and now it's all sort of, well, what are we going to do now? And I guess there's other things we could be doing. I've actually kind of enjoyed being a dad, so that's good. And it's like, she can be a little rambunctious at times, but then she can be like the sweetest thing on the planet. So I those moments are the kinds of things that I'm really enjoying right now. So in one way, I do wish I was playing, and I do wish I was out, and I do wish that I was being productive in my mind, at least as far as I'm concerned, what productive is. But on the other hand, it's great to have family time and have it be longer than I originally intended it to be. So, but I do think that if there was any kind of new drop on restrictions and they said let's go back to touring, I think all of us would pretty much jump on the chance, because that's what we do. We're a touring band. We love to we like to play music live, and that's really why we're in a band. I mean, I enjoy the creation part of it, and I do enjoy writing the music and then eventually recording it for an album, putting the album out. But the real thing for us is when you get together in a room and there's four of us making the noise together, and it hopefully sounds somewhat decent. We haven't played together since last year October, where we did a festival, and so it's weird. Corey was just up here the other day, and for Lily's birthday, and he's like, man, I forgot what you guys look like, because we're not really like the kinds of guys that jump on the phone and say, hey, how you feeling today? How's it going? It's more a thing of like, well, I'm not hearing anything, so I know they're good. I don't have to stress about them, and you just check in every once in a while. But it was nice to see him for the first time in person and give him a hug and really have a conversation with him and look him in the eye, which is something that I'm okay with for the most part. I've got very few friends, and I see them quite rarely, but when I do see them, it's like we just saw each other yesterday, so that's fine. But I was watching Dale earlier saying about how humans are these social creatures, and I was like, well, I think for the most part. So,
yeah, well, what's cool about hearing you say that is I think that that is so relatable to everyone all over the world right now. And we've got a lot of people who are joining us from different countries. We're here in the United States, but people from all over the world. And that's so relatable. And I remember, I sat at home for a while. I was still coming to work, but I didn't see anybody. And the first time I saw one of my best friends, it was like, do we hug? Like, all right, yeah, okay, we'll do a quick hug. And then it was like, oh my God, it is so nice to see you in person, to talk to you, to laugh, to tell stories, and just have that moment of, we could talk on the phone, but it's not the same. So I think it's refreshing to hear that, we're all going through this together, Well,
it's definitely a huge a vastly different experience when it's you see your friend, you give them a hug, and there's that chemistry and that connection, which I'm not a good phone person anyway. I mean, text is fine, whatever, but I don't really like to have phone calls. It just, I mean, I talk to people that I work with all the time and management and stuff like that, but for the most part, my friends, it's like, I don't do the phone calls thing, and maybe I should because
like, why are you calling me? Don't call me. It's 2020. Shoot me a text.
Well, and that's the weird thing too about all of the way everyone's kind of doing these things now. Like the interview with you now on Instagram, for example, it's like all these Zoom meetings that we're having now. All of these weird things where it's fine having the conversation, but you almost become a little self-aware because you're staring at yourself at the same time. So you're like, do I cover this? Do I cover this spot of the screen so I can just have a conversation? Do I keep looking in random directions because it makes me uncomfortable?
Right.
But yeah, I think everyone. I mean, it doesn't matter. You know, we're just much like everybody else. We just have a cool job. You know, but we have what's been very, very evident is that this cool job, most of it is actually getting out and being with the fans. And when you take that complete avenue away from us, it's just, okay, well, the best we can do now is some sort of impersonal. I've done some live streams where I play acoustic, and you can do those, and that's great, but it's so weird because there's no feedback. And again, you're just looking at a version of yourself playing music, you know, so it's bizarre, but I think mentally, at least my little family's good, and we, for the most part, don't want to murder each other. But
bonus.
Yeah, it's been a pretty heavy mental load, and I know people will someone's going to get mad about whatever we say these days, but it's been mentally quite a big strain because of the uncertainty. Look, if I knew there was a deadline, cool, then I would know, okay, 6 months from now we start. But as of right now, there were still some shows that were booked for September, which is comical because it's probably not going to happen. But they're holding out, which is cool. We'll see what happens. But then I'm hearing things about, no, this is 2021 summertime touring, so you're going to be home for another year. And then it's like, well, that might not even be the case. We may go till 2022 just to be on the safe side, and will the business ever recover? And I think it'll be fine. I think for me personally, when they say, you know, go out and you can live your life normally, which I don't think anyone's ever going to say that again. But regardless, as close to it as we can, then I'd go watch a band that I like to see. You know what I mean? I hope people will be so desperate for some kind of entertainment that we can really have a great touring season and we can connect with a lot of fans.
I think that that concept with some other bands, and just how at some point, like, maybe we all took for granted concerts, right? You know, like, they were just so readily available, and there's always that, like, oh, they're coming, I'll catch them next time. And now I think that when we do get back to doing concerts, like, it's going to be so engaged, and people are going to be so, instead of just standing at the bar, maybe talking with their friends, like, oh, I don't really know this song, like, it could come back, like, tenfold, and, like, the crowds are bigger, they're more powerful, they're louder. I can imagine you guys on stage, like, what a feeling it is to have people just screaming at the top of their lungs for you guys, and to hear that roar and know that every single person, I think that, I hope, fingers crossed that that's what it is.
I think from our end, I think from a fan's perspective, there'll be all that frustration and anxiety that you want to get rid of. And from our perspective, it's the same thing, because we also want to get on, because that's how we vent our frustration. That's how we get through our days. And sometimes doing it 5 days a week is not quite as cathartic as always, but it is what we do. And the thing about the U.S., which I've always noticed and I've always said, is as a country for rock and heavy metal music, for the most part, you can see any band that you love within almost a 6 month cycle, right? And they'll be within a few hours from your house. If you really like them, you'll drive a couple of hours or whatever. But in the U.S., you do take it, I think, for granted, because you go, oh, I'll see them next time because I know they'll be back in 6 months, but that's great because it's very plentiful to be able to see bands. But whereas when I grew up in South Africa, if one band came over in a decade, you know, if Smashing Pumpkins, they came over and it was a stadium full of people because we've never seen them play. Right. Even the Spin Doctors came in. And then we had Skunk Anansie, and that was it. But that was over what I can remember, like a 15-year period with the bands that I liked. Right. And then then Metallica came up once we were already in the States. But so for me, the appreciation was, well, you guys get to see whatever you want. So I never got to see the bands that I loved as a kid. I never got to see. I mean, I did see Rage Against the Machine well after they'd already, had broken up and reformed, but I didn't see them in their heyday. I didn't see Pantera. I didn't see, I've seen Pearl Jam one time, but I didn't see them when they were young. I didn't see Alice in Chains with obviously with Lane singing. And so that for me was I was always so envious of Americans because they could see these bands and they could see tour schedules. And it's like, oh, cool, they're in all these major cities. And then every major city has a couple of smaller cities within a few hours' drive. So basically, if an album comes out and a band's doing a headline, they are going to come pretty close to you, if not at least in your state. And it's close enough that if you really care about it, you'll go and see the band. And again, so I'm hoping that with this, it wasn't self-imposed, obviously, but after this all clears up, I think that certainly from my end, I need to get out and do something because it's becoming a little bit like Groundhog Day. I'm at the point now where I honestly, when new information comes trickling down the pipelines and we get these new messages and these new things are happening, I just don't even listen anymore because it changes so fast. So I'm really kind of feeling apoplectic about it. And I think at some point, I'm just like, dude, I just want to get this thing so I can get over it and I can stop being such a cowering away from it. You know what I mean? And I know that sounds, some people go, that's so irresponsible. I get it, but I'm just voicing my frustration in the sense of saying, I've had enough of not being able to do of free movement, and that's another beautiful American thing. And I've been a citizen now for 2 years, so I love this country, and I love all the freedoms, and I love all that comes with that. And suddenly, even in a pretty sort of conservative area, let's say, with liberal hotspots around, even in a state like this, we've been shut down now for the second time, basically. And I'm telling you that there's a buildup of frustration and anxiety that try as you might, as often as you try and deal with it or you try and release it somehow, it generally just you don't get enough of it out. So you're this constantly boiling that never really gets to fully boil and release that steam, and that's the thing. Right. And I think that when touring does come back, and I hope it comes back with a vengeance, I think that'll be when that lid comes off, the steam comes out, and everybody's just ready to have a good time. Because, I mean, I can't be the only one who's sick of this.
No, you're definitely not. Fortunately, though, you guys, and I think that so many people, like, we've got a ton of people commenting about your new song, Dangerous, which has been really well received here in Detroit, here at the Riff. But also just all the people that are commenting, like, that's one thing, like, yes, I think everyone is very sick of this. Like, let's just please let it be over. Please let this be a dream. But fortunately, we've had some new music come out, and you guys released the new track, which is super exciting. So we have that to look forward to, and we have new music to look forward to. Would you say that Dangerous is reflective of, like, the rest of the album?
No, I would say there's definitely some heavy stuff on there. And I think Dangerous is kind of like trying to do something a little bit musical. I think it was one of those songs that it's difficult to explain. I was kind of just writing for the sake of writing, and I wasn't really trying to restrict myself to any kind of boundary as far as what is either, what is not either. You know what I mean? So I just said, okay, cool, I'm going to write this song. And it kind of just took on a life of its own. And it's very different to everything else, which is, I think, why the label kind of gravitated towards it for the single. Because it is a little... the thing is if for me, I listen to a lot of rock music on radio, and they oftentimes, it doesn't seem like there's a very... And I'm also jaded and cynical, but oftentimes it seems like there's not much between bands that varies them to the point where you can point out each band, say by the singer, for example. Whereas I'm sure I don't listen to those kinds of bands enough. But I mean, I now know Bring Me the Horizon. It was a band that I was never really on my radar, but I love the new album, that Ammo album, or whatever, however you say that one. But I really enjoy the band from that album. But there's a lot of stuff that I listen to that just kind of all fits into a category, and that's great. That's fine. But I think, and we write stuff that's like that too. Make no mistake. But I felt, and the label felt, management felt that we wanted to do something that was different as far as a single goes, just because why not? Just let's try and stand out a bit at radio. Let's try and make it something that people don't necessarily expect from us, but has enough of an element of, okay, there's some heavy guitars in there. There's a bit of a breakdown bridge and some yelling. But it's also got something that's a kind of a different aspect, and it is misleading in a sense, because if I look at the rest of the track listing, there's a lot of stuff that's very, when we started on the last album, I was starting to steer back towards the original type of sound that we had, and kind of have more of a riff heavy, melodic music style again. There's a couple albums where I was trying to write as many notes as possible, because I thought that was important, and we were working with producers that they were great guys, but they wanted to add things that didn't necessarily fit into how I think I want to write songs. But it was a learning experience. And so for the rest of the album, there's definitely stuff that will be very reminiscent of what you know us to be. I think you'll feel quite comfortable. It won't be like, oh, geez, what the hell's happened to this band? You know what I mean?
Right.
But I thought Dangerous was an interesting way to sort of reintroduce ourselves, because a lot of our singles, if you look at them on paper, they're kind of ridiculous. Look at a song like "Fake It." I wrote it around an alley cat beat that was, and I'm like, can I turn this into a rock song? And I did, and it was just kind of. Honestly, sometimes I feel like it was just a complete joke that it happened to backfire on me, in the sense that it became a single. But then, and then there's stuff like Careless Whisper that came out. But then a lot of the songs we've written, also a lot of the single choices are always something that's a little bit more that's more accessible and leans more towards a pop sound, because that's what a label always thinks is the best way to go. So while we were on Wind Up Records, a lot of the singles were kind of the softer stuff, and Fine Agains and Broken and stuff like that. But now that we're on Concord or Fantasy Records, we get to play a little bit more with the singles, and we have more input. And so, and the A&R guy, Matt Marshall, he's the greatest guy on the planet. He just goes, well, I'm going to give you my score of what I think these songs are. I think they're great. So just go ahead and make it and give it to us when you're done. So there's none of that there's not that A&R parasite guy who feels the need to put his stamp on all the songs and give you some sort of lame note just so he can say he helped, so he can.
Right.
So it's a good place to be, and so that's why when I can write songs like Dangerous, and for me, honestly, it was my favorite throughout the process of writing, especially when I had the final 21 songs or whatever. Are there other songs that I think would have been better? Sort of, this is a Seether song for a single, absolutely. But I didn't want to do that either, because I don't want to become stagnant in that sense, and
sure.
I think this song could be, because the other thing is, excuse me. The other thing is when you have a set list and you play it at nighttime for fans, you basically always, I tailor it to what I know they want to hear. So you play this to the radio singles, and I felt that this would be kind of a song that could fit into that and not sound too similar to any of the others. And you need variation, and we always want to give fans what they want to hear. So that's kind of, but yeah, and that's basically how that happened. It was just because we felt we needed to make a statement by standing out a little bit, instead of just saying, oh, hey, here's a Seether.
I definitely, the first time.
I wanted that.
Yeah, for sure. I know that, like, when I heard it, and I've been listening to you guys for years. I've seen you guys. You played our Riff Fest last summer. And the first time that I heard it, I was like, oh, okay. Like, all right, okay. But I think that's awesome. Like, it's refreshing, and it's especially in the time that we're living in right now. Like, what a cool moment to have new music coming out, and it's this is the time in history, and so maybe some people are relating to just the name of the song itself, like what we're living in and how people are living their lives, like Dangerous, and maybe it's not a great thing, but to associate Seether. Album 2020 and releasing it, and so it's been really successful. You guys have had a lot of great feedback
Thank you.
so far, so it's pretty exciting. Someone submitted a question, because fortunately what we're doing right now, we can't interact with some fans, but have you seen Carpool Karaoke with James Corden? And if you had the opportunity to do that, would you be a part of that? Because I think that could be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think any kind of situation like that where you don't take yourself too seriously and it's a fun experience, and it's not it's not something that's normally within the purview of what we would do on a daily basis, I think it would be fun. The problem is that's never going to happen because, I think you have to reach a certain level in album sales or worldwide notoriety before you even would look at a band like us. But of course, it's something we would consider if it was an offer, because, I mean, it would be funny.
Why not?
Yeah, if we can take a moment to really look at ourselves and laugh at ourselves, we will jump on it. It's not something that we would go, oh no, we can't do that. We're a serious, never smile rock band.
Right.
So yeah, we don't.
I'm going to start a petition. Like, I think we should get Seether on Carpool Karaoke. I would love to see that. And I think that, like you said, there's a certain caliber level of album, whatever it is, and they need to break up that monotony, because seeing this person and that person, and let's highlight some of the bigger names in rock and roll or different genres. They should be doing that. They should be doing names.
You know that rock music has been so vastly ignored by everything from the Billboards to the Grammys to American Music Awards. You name it. It's over the 20 years that I've been in the US, or just less, 18 years. I've noticed that it gets a smaller and smaller and smaller category every year, and occasionally, and I think now we're at a point where it doesn't even make it to television, which is fine. I don't watch that stuff anyway, because it's just a waste of my time. But to see the lack of representation, and everyone else will say this too. I mean, bigger talking heads than me will come on and say, their bands deserve recognition because they certainly have sold the albums for it. And I think that they have a point. So it only stands to reason that because there's no representation except for at rock and possibly alternative stations of music that actually includes guitars now. Because apparently in 1992, alternative sounded like Nevermind, Nirvana, and now alternative sounds like some guy plinking away on a piano, and you got to basically sing in falsetto and have a big boomy sort of sing along drum sound or whatever. But yeah, it's just been a steady sort of drift away from that, and alternative music is now such an all encompassing but also exclusive sound. So we will get played on a rock station, and that's it, because we are apparently too heavy for alternative. You know what I mean? So it's just this weird little thing that wasn't even a thing about 10 years ago. But whole stations, and luckily you guys have been one of those stations that hasn't, and one of our biggest supporters for a long time, but there have been stations that have completely flipped format, and they don't even answer the calls anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. And these are in major cities where you had a massive following, and you go, well, now what? We can have a beer with you, but we can't play. Oh, cool, man.
Cool,
thanks a lot. That's awesome. I've only known you for 10 years.
For it too. Right back at you, bud.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I mean, so again, if in a long-winded way, if we could do carpool karaoke, absolutely, we would jump on that.
Okay, I think you have a lot of fans that would support that. Of course, a bunch of people are asking, and the Dangerous just came out. So I think probably jumping the gun a little bit, but do you have a timeline of another single? Obviously, the album's coming out on August 28th. So, that's literally, what are we, a month of 7 weeks away-ish, roughly?
Already?
Which is,
that's crazy.
Which isn't a whole lot of time in the world of, albums, single cycles.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, is there going to be another single before the album drops?
Yeah, we'll release it. I think there'll be a second song released to the streaming platforms. So not necessarily as a single, because obviously we're trying to build on the first one. But as far as I know, it's a song called Big, which I think comes out this month sometime, because we were kind of trying to keep the interest of people engaged. And I will tell you, for example, that song is a whole lot heavier than Dangerous. So it's kind of like it's the straight to DVD of rock singles. Because, you know what I mean? So yeah, that'll be released.
Analogy.
that'll be released. I think coming up within the next 2 weeks or so. I'm only in the band. I don't really know. Yeah, I think, and that's going to be. I think if there's any kind of unanswered questions about the direction of the band, that'll answer them, because it's the polar opposite of Dangerous, but that's also because it's a really heavy song. There's a lot of yelling and screaming, and you don't really want that to be something that's played. That's the kind of song I want people to get into as fans, and really they want to hear that one live. You know what I mean? And I think it's the kind of song that would do well live because of the fact that it's really aggressive. So, and it's one of my favorite albums. It was actually one of my favorite songs on the album. And if it had any kind of melody in the chorus, it might have made it as a single. But it was one of those that I just needed to vent some serious rage. And somebody asked Dale earlier if I screamed on this album, and he's like, "Oh, he screams on every album." But I use it more judiciously than I did before, and I try to not overdo it. So, but this song I just let it fly. So you'll see it. It'll go from Dangerous, which is kind of like, got melody and it's kind of got a sort of different dark ominous feel, and then to Beg, which will be the next one, was just basically just straight up like try and tear your face off. That's the whole goal.
That's a great way to promote it. I think a lot of fans are now excited after hearing that kind of description.
Yeah.
So, well, we've been talking for about a half hour now, so I guess I'll let you go, and we'll get back to sitting in our houses. But just real quick, like one last thing. Which is, we've been asking, and someone had mentioned in the chat here, just how you guys have helped them personally through, like, mental issues and mental strength and things like that. So do you have any words of wisdom or anything that maybe helps keep you going during this time of uncertainty? And if you're feeling like maybe depressed or down or out or anything that you could enlighten our fans with?
I mean, that's a tough one to answer, because I think everyone is individual. But I think if I could say, on a broad spectrum, there's two ways that I've tried to deal with it when I get. Well, there's been some unhealthy ways too, but when you try and deal with any kind of anxiety or fear or any of those kind of the depression, the one way to do it is to talk to somebody and then be honest with them. And then that could be a family member, that could be a therapist, it could be just somebody that somebody that you trust, that you can vent to, and really talk about it. And there's no reason to be reserved about it. Just let it out, because talking something like that through, really, as you talk about it, you can sometimes put it into perspective for yourself, and you can sort of, as the gears turn, the lights come on, and you go, oh, well, hang on, it doesn't have to be this way. And trust me, I've had depression my entire life. I've been on and off of medication for many, many years. And the other way is to find an outlet that usually is, in my experience, it needs to be creative. So even if it's, say you want to draw something, even if you suck at it, it doesn't matter, because somebody else may think it looks great. You know what I mean? How does it make you feel to get it out? Even if that's like taking a red marker and just scribbling some angry scribbles, it's the act of going through it that becomes therapeutic. And I have music, so if I'm mad, I can go upstairs, and I can turn up my guitar, and I can just play along, or just let it feed back, because I think it's cool. But that's always been my outlet. I used to paint when I was younger. I think I'm terrible, so I stopped. I should have done in the past few months of being home. I should have done that, but I've honestly been allowed myself to get really depressed at times, and really anxious, and really terrified of what the future is.
Right.
So for me, it's been, I've got a lifelong struggle with this kind of stuff. So, but if it wasn't for my wife and my kid and some of the close friends that we have around us, and the band guys and management, and I've got a lot of good people around me. So, and I also have a couple therapists that I talk to, which for me is the best way to do it, as far as talking through stuff, because they are the unbiased,
right,
and completely. They just have if you have a great relationship with somebody that you can talk to on a weekly basis, and they can give you guidance, and they can say, well, how about look at it from this angle, and they give you a different perspective. And that's what you need, and you can get that from a family member too, or from a friend. just they can say, okay, cool, I understand, and you know, oh wow, so so you're feeling, you're afraid, you're anxious, you're depressed. Well, how about if you look at it this way, without being condescending, without disregarding the feeling, because it's quite easy to get the impression that if somebody offers you advice, then it can come across as a criticism, even though it's not, and you know it's not, but because your brain is all addled, you take everything so personally. Certainly, I do. And it's been something that I'm working on, that I get better at as time goes by. But so I would suggest that communication, and that's been so difficult. You can speak to somebody, anybody. I mean, I would even advocate if you wanted to call a phone hotline that was there for this specific purpose. Yep. And at the very end, I will say, look, I can't tell anybody what to do, and I can't give any kind of direction or instruction. What I will say is, the suicide rates have gone up, and it's getting younger, and it's really sad and terrifying to watch. And I've been through this before, and let me tell you, what do you leave behind for the people that then have to have the rest of their lives without you, even if you don't think and maybe that's a selfish way to look at it, but it's been 13 years for me, and there's still a couple of days of the year where I get really, really sad, being a birthday and the day he died. So it's something that you will leave the people that love you with that for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? So I encourage people, get a new hobby, read a book. I just read the entire Witcher series. It was great. I couldn't put the books down. Play video games. And I know these are all things that your parents told you not to do, but you got no choice now. In fact, if you can play video games, get good at the game, and the next thing you'll be getting paid millions.
Right.
So that's really all I've got is I think it's important to and it's easy to look at things through a lens of, oh, the world is ending. And I'm guilty of that often. But the other person in the room can remove those glasses and say to you, well, what about this? What is the? Yep. Let's look at it from a different angle. So I'm lucky that my wife's a very positive person, and she's a very kind and sweet person, whereas I'm not. I am, but I'm also, I cannot be. You know what I mean? I take everything really personally. I carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. So I need that balance, and she helps me through a lot of these things. And oftentimes I respond in a way that I can be better at, because I take things very personally, and I know it's coming from a place of love, but I then still. So that's a thing I'm trying to work on for myself too. But having somebody that you can talk to certainly is the first step, I think. And then again, even if it's a new sport you play, or if it's just something that can occupy your mind, and before you know it, an hour's going by, that's great. That's great. That could be a book.
Yeah, for me, I ended up buying a basketball hoop for my driveway, and just going outside and doing that. So I think that like what you're saying is very insightful. A lot of people are commenting, like, appreciate sharing your story and talking about that and being open about it. That helps, and just being able to talk about it and look at things in a different way. So I think that's really great. So. Well, we're very excited. New album. Say the name of it one more time.
Si vis pacem parabellum.
Due out August 28th. The new song is up online right now. You can check out the video at WRIF.com. Big thanks to our sponsors for the virtual rock room, Sailor Jerry and the Diamond Vault of Troy. And a huge thanks to you, Sean Morgan of Seether. We are so grateful for you joining us today. Good luck. We hope to see you soon. Like, God, we just hope to see you here in Detroit, and we will all party and have a really great rock and roll time. And be safe out there, and we'll catch you soon.
Cool. Thank you very much. Stay safe.
Later, man. Bye.